Hello, and welcome to A Better Morning. I'm Heather Klein. We debate the trending topics in sports from a sports betting point of view. Let's welcome today's panel. Award-winning host, the fantasy exec, Corey Parson. Host of Her Story in the Making, Britt's Fantasy Blitz, and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Fantasy Alarm, lead NFL analyst and host of Fantasy Fiasco, Andrew Coop Cooper. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning, gang. Britt's Blitz. I like that.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of alliteration and, it just worked. So,
nice,
but how about your show, The Fiasco?
That's right. Coop A Fiasco on Twitter right there. And Coop's, I'm not sure if it's football fiasco or fantasy fiasco. Tommy was the one that came up with that one, but I like that. I like that idea. So that's today, 1:00 starting today. My own show, Britt's own show. We're going to have famous guests on like Corey Parson. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be good.
Award-winning guests.
Award-winning famous executive guests like Corey Parson.
That don't have their own show. How about that?
Yeah, you know what, Corey? I know your head doesn't need to be any bigger than it already is, but this weekend at the Scott Fish Bowl, somebody brought you up, and then not because they knew I was on a show with you. They actually didn't even know that, but they were like, "Yeah, well, my favorite. I loved it back in the day when it was Scott Engel and Corey Parson." I was like,
I wish I was here to hear that. So
I said,
see what a real award-winning content looks like.
I swear I said that to a fan. I was like, that show won an award, right?
How about that? You know what I'm saying? The show hasn't been on the air in 10 years, but at least every 2 or 3 months, somebody will bring it up.
Yeah, a fan of the Scott Fish Bowl. They were asking for a picture with me, obviously, but
yeah, of course.
They were thinking about you, buddy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Were you wearing your shades, Coop?
Oh, of course.
And it is Fantasy Fiasco, Coop.
That's right. Perfect. Love it.
Okay, let's get to it, guys. For 9 teams, rookies report to NFL training camp today. Carolina has a new coach and a new quarterback in Frank Reich and Bryce Young. Although Bijan Robinson, Britt's favorite, is favorited for Rookie of the Year at plus 300, the Panthers rookie QB is a close second at plus 420. What are your expectations for Young in his first NFL season, and do you think he could win Rookie of the Year? Oop, you're up first.
Yeah, so when it comes to sports betting in situations like this, we have to separate what we want to happen from what we actually think is going to happen. I did sprinkle a little money on Rashee Rice going to the best team in football to play with the best quarterback in football at plus 5,000. That's what I want to happen. What I think is going to happen is actually Bryce Young winning this. Bijan Robinson, if he can stay healthy the whole year, probably can win this. But I mean, when you look at the just the general history of running backs, the odds of him going down are better than him staying healthy. And if you look at last year's, the 2 guys that got hurt, Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields, probably were the best players. Chris Olave and Justin Fields, but Garrett Wilson won. He stayed healthy. He put up the best stats. I think that Bryce Young on this team, there's a reason the Panthers are set to win 7.5 games at minus 120, and the Texans are set at 6.5 at plus 110. I think that the Panthers are going to be the better team. And if they're the better team and they have the better quarterback, he's going to win the award.
Yeah, this is about as slam dunk as one can get right here. Listen, don't get me wrong. I expect Bijan Robinson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba guys to have a good seasons to be solid. But this is, this was a 1 quarterback draft. Here you got a Heisman Trophy winning Alabama quarterback, first overall pick in the draft. They traded up to get him because they know what he is. He's a franchise leader, a face of a franchise. And you look at the Carolina Panthers roster, they got a good offensive line. They're strong on the defensive line. They got talent all over the field. All they needed was somebody to get in there and get that quarterback position right, getting a head coach in there. So I love Bryce Young to be the Rookie of the Year this season. Listen, I think when as a rookie quarterback, you come in and you take your team to the playoff, more than likely win the division. I don't really think what anybody else does is really even going to matter unless somebody goes off and has a Jamar Chase-like season, which I don't see happening. So, yeah, the Carolina Panthers young quarterback would definitely be my best bet for Rookie of the Year. Carolina to win the NFC South, Carolina to go over on their win total, and Carolina to make the playoffs is a way that you cash a lot of tickets at the end of the season.
See, I think that Bryce Young is going to do fine and probably better than average as far as rookie quarterbacks go. But I'm going to push back a little bit against Corey and say that the Panthers' offensive line is actually a huge point of concern for me. Last season, if you look at the time in the pocket, Carolina's quarterbacks had close to the least amount of time in the pocket before they had to throw. And with Young's slight frame, they're going to have to do more to protect him. I also worry about his weapons with an aging Adam Thielen, an oft-injured DJ Chark. Then you've got a rookie in Jonathan Mingo and a non-factor third year in Terrace Marshall. I don't doubt Bryce Young's talent, but I do think he's going to have a little bit of a hard time acclimating to the size and pace of the NFL. And so I'm still putting my money on Bijan to win Rookie of the Year.
Bijan's a fantastic bet. You know what I'm saying? The talent is there, no doubt about it. But to win Rookie of the Year, I think as a quarterback is the way to go. Now, when you look at Carolina's quarterbacks last year, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and P.J. Walker, that could probably have something to do with that time in the pocket because neither of them are all of that good. I think Young comes into the season better than all of those guys right there. And I don't worry about Young's size because Young played in the Southeastern Conference. He didn't have a problem going up against LSU and all of these teams, Georgia, with these big, bad defenses while he was a collegiate athlete. Those are the same dudes on the other side of the line in the NFL. So I get the reason for the apprehension. You know what I mean? But I like Bryce a lot.
Yeah, I hear you, but when he did get hit, and it was that Arkansas game where he got hit by Drew Sanders, he landed wrong on his shoulder, and he was out the rest of the game and then the game after that. All it takes is one hit, one bad hit from one big linebacker, one big defensive end, and he could be in real trouble. So just a little nervous about it.
See, now for me with the size thing, coming into the draft, I was worried about it. And if he slid in the draft and nobody took him, or he went towards the end of the draft, then I'd be worried about it. But a team traded a ton of assets to trade up to the top pick to take this guy. You got to trust the talent evaluation on that one. I think that if it was a problem, it would be a problem, right? And when you look around at some of these other situations, you have to remember what the voters want to do. They want to give it to the first overall pick. They want to give it to a quarterback. They want to look back on this award and say, we knew this guy was special. We knew he was right. That's why they didn't give it to James Robinson, despite his great rookie year. He was an undrafted guy, and they don't want that on the record. So they're looking for the team that wins the most games and has the classic-looking rookie of the year. So things, honestly, because of all that, skew towards Bryce Young. CJ Stroud, simply because he was the second pick, as crazy as it sounds, he needs to be much more special than Bryce Young for the voters to say, let's give it to this guy over that guy. And I don't think the Texans are in that position, especially with their defense. And as much as it sucks, wins is a quarterback stat.
Well, we talk about wins being a quarterback stat, but Justin Herbert won Rookie of the Year in 2020 as the sixth pick off the board. He didn't even play the entire season, and the Chargers didn't even make the playoffs that year.
Well, he
had an elite season throwing the football.
If CJ Stroud could come out and do that, then maybe. But I don't think Robert Woods is Keenan Allen. And there ain't no Austin Eckler over there either.
All right. The tea has been spilled. Sources say DeAndre Hopkins is expected to sign with the Titans after much pub that he was going to make the move to, Coop, New England. Where does D-Hop rank among wide receivers now that he has found a new home? Corey, what's your thoughts?
An exact ranking for where D-Hop is right now is not something that I would be able to let you know off the top of the head. What I do know is that I told you guys about 10 days or so ago on this very program that DeAndre Hopkins would be a member of the Tennessee Titans because nobody was going to pony up that kind of money unless it was a desperate team like the Titans. Now, they're going to pay this dude $12 million this year. You know who else is making $12 million this year? A.J. Brown. What the hell is going on in Tennessee? You went and got a guy 10 years older than the guy you had, and you're going to pay him the same amount of money? Nobody else was going to give him this contract. That's why it took so long for him to sign. As far as what he's going to do on the field, he's in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. We all know what the Tennessee Titans are. They play situational football. They're well coached, but general managing is something that's a problem there. So I really don't think Hopkins is much anything. for fantasy, maybe a wide receiver 3.
Wide receiver 3. Wow, that's spicy. I also want to touch on, not only did they guarantee him $12 million, but he has an incentive-based deal where he could make up to $15 million this season. So it's crazy. I think that he is still going to shoot up draft boards now that he has a landing spot. Sure, the Titans aren't pass heavy, but Hopkins does have a relationship with Titans offensive coordinator Tim Kelly, who he worked with in Houston. And we forget, Hopkins ranked 9th in fantasy points per game last season, even with backup quarterbacks in Arizona. And when Ryan Tannehill had 2 decent receivers in 2020 with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, Brown had over 1,000 yards. Davis was 16 yards away from hitting 1,000. So I don't think it's doom and gloom for either Hopkins or Treylon Burks. I'm actually ranking him as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, even on this run-first offense, because they're going to have to try and compete with Jacksonville for that AFC South title.
Yeah, so we always say that money talks, right? So when I look at these contract situations, and you guys seem to be on opposite ends of this, I just start looking around at what the other ones that free agent wide receivers got. So Michael Thomas is back on a 10 mil deal that could be up to 15 mil, whereas you got Hopkins at 12 mil that could be up to 15. Odell Beckham Jr. is getting a minimum of 15 mil that could be up to 18 mil. So with that in mind, either the Ravens did their homework on all these guys, and they actually truly believe Odell is much better, in which case he's playing with the better quarterback, and we could be sleeping on him, or the Ravens signed one of the worst free agent contracts this offseason. But this whole situation, how it panned out and how the contracts landed, it actually kind of has me looking at Odell and saying, maybe the Ravens know something that we don't here.
I just think that looking at Odell, he hasn't been healthy over the past several seasons. He hasn't even played in the past 2. When he's on the field, he's great, but he's coming in. People want to talk about Calvin Ridley being dusty and having to shake some rust off because he hasn't played. But when was the last time that Odell Beckham put up Calvin Ridley numbers? He's also doesn't have that injury history. Neither does Hopkins, to be honest. He missed the first 6 games because of a PED situation with that specific trainer that gets everybody in PED suspension situations. So that's a whole other can of worms that we could go into. But I think that Hopkins still has some gas left in the tank. Like, he's going to be one of the guys that defies that wide receiver age apex. And even if he is on a less pass happy offense, I think he's going to make the most of the targets that he gets.
So my thing would be, why was he on the free agent market for so long? I don't think NFL talent evaluators miss when they leave a guy who's been a stud like DeAndre Hopkins out there. DeAndre Hopkins was on a tour. Like, he was going around visiting facilities. The top players in the country, that doesn't happen to them. They get signed, you know what I'm saying? So I think there is a lot of rust on DeAndre Hopkins, and it shows that the only person that really wanted to give him money was a team that was devout of any talent. As far as Odell Beckham goes, that contract was an outlier because Odell Beckham is not going to live up to that. No wide receiver goes to Baltimore and succeeds. It doesn't happen. Lamar Jackson likes Mark Andrews and J.K. Dobbins. I wouldn't trust anybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to talk about a place where wide receivers go and don't succeed in their older years, the Tennessee Titans.
There you go.
I mean, like Julio Jones, those guys going through. So, and I will give Britt credit for this point here. Like, Michael Thomas has also missed time. DeAndre Hopkins, even suspended, he missed time. And the year before, they only played 10 games. But in the 9 games he played last year, he did get 96 targets. So they're paying for this guy. They're going to get him the targets. It's whether or not he can be effective with them. I think wide receiver 2 ranges is where I'd live. So, Britt, you said back end wide receiver 1. Corey, you said he's going to be like a wide receiver, 700. And I said he's going to be wide receiver 2.
Splitting the baby here.
So I think he's going to be about a wide receiver 2. We'll have to see who's right on that one at the end of the year.
I don't hate that, but I just want to put in one more point. I think that Hopkins wanted money. I don't think that it was a team didn't want him. I think he wanted to take the best deal. And then having that former relationship with Tim Kelly, I think that that's what sealed the deal for him.
So even if he took less money, like say he took less money to play for a Kansas City or a Buffalo, the 2 teams that was widely rumored to be interested, what does he do on those teams? Kansas City got a log jam at wide receiver. Does he come in and be the best there? And then Buffalo already got Stephon Diggs. They got Dalton Kincaid. Okay, so you come into Kansas City and you'll be the best, but the best player is Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think he's not Tyreek Hill. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to dominate the offense.
Well, there's also an issue of cap space with both the Chiefs and the Bills. They have the least and the second least cap space. And we all know that contracts can be restructured, but this close to training camp, it's just not feasible to do that.
If he wasn't trying to squeeze every last penny out, then he would have gone and played with the greatest coach of all time.
He definitely wasn't going to give him that money. You know they don't pay wide receivers.
They don't. They never have. Except that one time when they got the one good wide receiver that they've had in 20 years, and he scored 23 touchdowns that season.
It's Hall of Fame wide receiver.
DeAndre Hopkins might be.
Future Hall of Famer Corey Parson over there.
Every gold jacket ain't the same, though, Coop. You know what I'm saying? Like, if DeAndre Hopkins does get into the Hall of Fame, his gold jacket is not going to be like Randy Moss' gold jacket.
He'd get in through the back door. I mean, the PB suspension on there, a lot of that going
on. Whoa.
Is it going to be like a marigold colored jacket instead of an actual gold jacket?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be off gold.
Like mustard stain on it.
Bootleg gold. All right. The Baltimore Orioles have won 8 straight games and can tie for the lead in the AL East with a win over the Dodgers and a Tampa loss to Texas. Are you betting on Tampa, Baltimore, or another team to win the AL East? Britt, you're up first.
So I'm still betting on the Rays to win the division, but we can't overlook that what the Orioles have done this season is impressive. Their hitting core is so freaking good with Adley Rutschman, Austin Hayes, Anthony Santander. I mean, these guys are mean. I think the Rays ultimately win out, though, due to their pitching staff with Shane McClanahan and his 2.53 ERA, but it's going to be a dogfight down the stretch. If you look at the odds, though, the Rays are still negative 185 to win compared to the Orioles at plus 470, and I think that speaks for itself. So personally, I would take Tampa Bay to win the AL East, but if you want to sprinkle a little bit of money on plus odds, I would not be opposed to that plus 470 for the Orioles just because it is so tight.
Yeah, I'm going to borrow a word here from the great Corey Parson when I say that most of these other teams in the AL East are fugazi. They are fake good. Don't look no further than what the Boston Red Sox have been doing the last couple of weeks, where they're 8-2, won 9 of their last 11. That team really is, at the end of the day, not a good team. You look at the Orioles are quote unquote one game back behind the Rays, but they're a team that the Rays have a plus 152 run differential, and no other team in that division is over 50. And as you pointed out, they get Shane McClanahan back. Their Yandy Diaz is coming back from parental leave. This team is just going to go right back on track, and there's a reason that they're almost minus 200 to win this division, despite it being close. So I'm not betting on anybody else besides the Rays, and I'm not taking the Rays at that line because it's just too hot.
Yeah, this one right here to win the AL East is not going to be one that makes my sheet. I tell you what, who I would not be betting on to win the American League East, the New York Yankees. Oh my God, how the mighty have fallen. The once evil empire that can't even get back to the World Series in over 15, going on 20 years now. And then the ownership group gets nervous, sit up there and wonder why the fans are mad. Because the fans are used to ticker tape parades in the Canyon of Champions, not being last place in the gosh darn AL East with teams like Boston and Tampa and Baltimore. Now you mean to tell the fan base that the Yankees are worse than all this team this far past the All-Star break? Only 6 games over 500. It's a disgrace what's going on in the Bronx right now. A disgrace.
Yeah, when you put pinstripes on the garbage trucks in the Bronx and the Yankees logo on the side, I think that tells you everything you need to know about the Yankees and their season. But I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's
Yankees
sad.
Is the Mets now. It doesn't make any sense. It's a joke. It's an embarrassment. I mean, obviously you can't get rid of the Steinbrenners. You know what I'm saying? But what's going on here? Cashman, Boone, somebody's got to go. This is not working.
So this is where I draw the line, where Better Boss in the chat said, I actually feel bad for Yankee fans. And that Unacceptable. Do never look at Corey Barnes' face right now. Do you see that face right now? He knows you never feel bad for that team.
Don't do it.
Because at any given time, they can't get hot with the talent they have, and they're the ones that pay for it, and they signed themselves up for this, man. They're years, building the Death Star year after year. I mean, they'll tell you all about the rings they won back in the day when only guys from Boston and Baltimore suburbs were allowed to play. But never ever feel bad for the Yankees.
I want to go back to what Corey said, that they are the Mets right now. Their payroll is so high, but what are they doing with all this talent? What are they doing with all this money? They're not going out. They're not making any moves. The rotation is not great, and I'm saying that to be nice. And how are you letting the Orioles, when you are a legacy team in the entire history of baseball, how are you getting beat this bad and falling down?
They don't have legacy ownership anymore. That's the problem. The boss wouldn't have gone for this all this long time without winning. Whatever it takes, it would have gotten done. It seems like nowadays they're going the conservative route or the less money spending route, or trying to figure out ways to piece it together. You build that $1 billion crap heap of a stadium, you tore the old house down, ain't only won one time since. Listen, there's a lot of stuff going on in that New York front office that is very problematic, and it needs to get fixed ASAP. Because I'm telling you, and pretty soon that stadium is going to be empty. We don't play that in the Bronx. I just take that to Queens and go watch the Mets. I just love
that the Yankees can be this bad, and the Mets are still like, hold my beer. And they've scored 6 runs over the last 5 games or whatever it is. Just absolutely finding a way every single time to, if the Yankees are bad, they'll somehow blow it in an even grander fashion. Good job, Mets. Well, never let us down. They never let us down.
The Mets,
I'm just going to bring back the oldie but goodie, the New York mess.
That's right.
Relax, Britt. Arkansas don't have a baseball team.
We actually do. It's in Springdale. It's not the higher of the the MLB, but it is a little team for the Royals. And we fill that park.
The Springdale Hog Mollies.
No, we're the Naturals. Wow. The Arkansas Naturals.
Oh, there you go, the Arkansas Naturals.
Where did you come up with that, Coop?
I think Arkansas. I think hogs. What was the Treylon Burks would hunt hogs, feral hogs with a knife? Is that
and it's bare hands.
Bare hands. That's as Arkansas as you make them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's gross. All right. On that note, now it's time for Dealer's Choice. Give us your bet of the day. It could be on the day's MLB action, futures odds, prop bets, summer league. Coop, what do you have for us today?
So last time I brought us a little lesson from Bentley University, where I went to school, when I talked about the time value of money. And once again, I'm going to be bringing up some old finance terms here, and we're going to be going against the time value of money, locking up money in a futures bet again. This time we're going to do a little fantasy arbitration here. I look around at the ADPs for guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, AJ Brown. Those guys are all set at 1,300 yards, all of them 8 or 9 touchdowns with the Vegas books. Justin Jefferson's at 1,350, Chase 1,275, Tyreek Hill 1,300, Stephon Diggs, even Diggs where he's going is up near 1,200. For some reason, the books have AJ Brown at 1,050. So here I'm basically saying the fantasy world either has this completely wrong, or it's an easy way to make a little bit of money. Last year he had 1,400 yards. Betting on him to have a 1,000-yard season, not that hard to me.
All right, strap it up, everybody. Fantasy executive about to give you a winner. And Coop, you won't like this one. This is egregious right here. The New England Patriots over 7.5 wins. You can actually get this at plus money. And I know people might be tired of the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, and they're going to point to Mac Jones. You ever notice how people talk about quarterbacks? They mention the quarterback's weapons, and, he's not good because he don't got no weapons, despite the fact he makes $40 million a year. You know who really don't have no weapons? Mac Jones. He may have the worst weapons in NFL history, but you never hear people say that Mac Jones don't have no weapons. It's because they have a bias against him. Here's the truth of the matter. You get an intelligent quarterback like that. He rebounds this season. He gets a real offensive coordinator. New England won 8 games last year and had 2 of the worst losses in New England Patriot history. Bill Belichick had that team back in contention this year. It's not like Buffalo is that great of a team. New England over 7.5 easy.
Smart take.
Yeah, I learned my lesson on planting a quarterback's future on their lack of receiving help last year that got blasted all over fantasy receipts yesterday. But anyway, I'm going to go with a baseball game today. I'm going to go with the Reds money line over the Giants at plus 135. Since the arrival of Elly De La Cruz, the Reds rank 9th offensively, largely in part due to their steals. They have 55 steals in that time span, which is 17 more than any other team. And they should be able to get some over on Logan Webb tonight, who doesn't have a very good success rate on preventing steals. The Reds are just too hot to bet against right now, but even if you don't feel great about the money line, just bet the over of 9.5 at negative 116 because this game is going to have fireworks.
Yeah, anytime I can jump onto a Patriots bandwagon that's being driven by somebody else, I will gladly hop aboard. And you're right, when you talk about those losses, people don't realize how close this team was actually to making the playoffs. Yep. Because the one that people jump out to people is the Raiders one, right? Where the reverse Hail Mary from Jacoby Myers to Chandler Jones, where he ran over Mac Jones. Like, that's the first one that comes to mind. But if you think about that Bills game, if they had anyone that could kick a touchback, their punter at the time was the guy that did kickoffs, but he was away from the team. If they had anyone that could kick a touchback, they wouldn't have had Nyheim Hines run back not 1 but 2 kicks and have Nick Folk kick one out of bounds for an illegal procedure that brings the ball to the 45. That game was easily winnable.
Very un-Belichick-like season, and you come back with a win total of 7.5. Man, cash that, take that to the bank.
Easy one.
That's why they spent.
That's easy money, Britt.
That's why they spent 2 draft picks on kickers this season because they didn't want the same thing to happen again.
Seriously though, I mean it's crazy how important that is, you know. And they let that punter very unceremoniously was sent off in the offseason.
And special teams is one of the strengths of what the Patriots do. To see that be a reason that caused them to lose football games last year was very unconventional. I expect a big bounce back. I think the Jets and the Bills are overrated.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys just look up the Adam Sandler song, The Lonesome Kicker, and that tells you everything you need to know about the Patriots kicking game last season.
I will look it up. And shout out Adam Sandler, Boston area Patriots fan.
And big baller. Big basketball baller.
Yeah, he is.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
All right, Heather.
All right, we're good today. That was today's edition of A Better Morning. Thank you to Corey, Britt, and Coop. Make sure you check out the debut of Fantasy Fiasco with Coop today at 1 p.m. Eastern, followed by Britt's Fantasy Blitz at 2. And if you missed any of our shows, you can find them all on our YouTube channel and at bettersports.com. And YouTube being Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. We wish everyone a better day